10 Cloverfield Lane came about when we got this spec script. It was like a Twilight Zone idea. And I think the great stories are great what-if stories. And I think if you said to someone, what if you found yourself trapped in a place and you were told it was really dangerous outside, but then you discovered it was really terrifying inside, what would you do? And that idea I thought was just an incredibly powerful idea, so we began developing that.
The movie opens with Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She gets into a car accident and wakes up in this underground facility of sorts.
She is tethered to the wall by a chain and has this sort of horrible makeshift knee brace on and has no idea where she is or how she got there. And so as the movie goes on, it all kind of unfolds and you find out that there's this man there who's keeping her there and saying that it's for her own safety because there has been some sort of attack.
There's fallout and she can't leave for years, but she should be thankful because he saved her life. And we are not sure what to think of that, and things spiral out of control from there.
The idea was that this movie was such a tense premise. The entire experience was a little bit of an exercise in sort of pulling, the bow back further and further and further and further. In the third act, we were finally letting, the arrow fly because of the reference to Cloverfield, which is a fairly well-known monster movie, an alien story. We didn't want to present a monster movie the way you might expect. And so the fun of this was that for much of the film, the monster that you're dealing with might be someone human in the room with you. Dan Trachtenberg directed this film in a way that I don't think watching this movie you'd ever think this was his first movie. The way he collaborates with his actors, his crew, with us, he directs with a real confidence.
See?
What happened to them?
They weren't as lucky as you. It's the air, Michelle. That's what happens when you get exposed.
I think what was very unique about it was that it was so much in one character's point of view. We are with one character throughout the whole thing. We never get to see what another character sees without her perspective. And I really wanted people to feel what she is feeling.
When I was first reading the script, I honestly didn't know where it was going from sequence to sequence. There were moments where you're rooting for certain characters and moments where you don't like them and you're afraid of if they're a villain or if they're a hero. You really don't know. And I thought that was really unexpected and interesting and exciting.
Mary has been incredible to watch, and she's so expressive, and there's so much going on behind her eyes, and she's so physical and fun to watch in these moments.
Mary plays this character with an amazing strength, even when she's terrified, even when she is perplexed as to what move to make. And the beauty of that is, I think along the way, the audience is with her every step.
You really see somebody going through this and reacting in a way that a normal person would. In a lot of these type of movies, I think we've seen kind of the cliche movie version of things, and I think Michelle is very level-headed and very human throughout the whole film.
The role is very quiet. The character actually doesn't speak that much in the movie, so her performance has to be so subtle, and she has to convey so much with just her body and her face and what's going on inside her head.
Okay, please. Please don't hurt me. Please. Just let me go, okay? I won't tell anybody. I promise. Okay, please just let me go. Please.
You need fluids. You were in shock.
What are you gonna do to me?
I'm going to keep you alive.
The thing that was very important for us in looking at who to cast for Howard is that we didn't want him to feel mustache twirly. And someone who at first we might not trust and at first we might think is crazy, but as the story progresses, we might think, maybe he's got a point, maybe we are the crazy ones. John Goodman does that so well. He is so convincing and can say things with such conviction to make you believe what he's saying, and then and the turn of a switch is terrifying and you have no idea what he is thinking.
To have an actor like John Goodman, who is so seemingly endlessly versatile, so funny, so likable, but playing a guy who is at turns perhaps the most unlikable person you'll know, the most frightening person you might know. To have John Goodman doing that elevates the role.
I've never played a character quite like this before. So close to my actual person. And yeah, so it's interesting. I don't have to do anything. Got a little loose wiring in his head, the character does, so he's overly concerned about being wiped out by forces unknown, and he obsesses with it, and he's a very careful man. We see him initially through Michelle's eyes, and it turns out that he actually ran Michelle off the road for whatever reason. He'd had another girl down here before who was no longer here. You don't know exactly what happened to her, but nothing good. And then it turns out that there are Martians out there. That's what we're calling. That's what I call them.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to scare you. Are you hungry?
Emmett was another tough role, and I think that, Michelle and Howard, we had a good sense of who those characters were from pretty early in the process. Emmett was always kind of in flux, and, once we cast John, I feel like he's really become a singular, unique character, and Howard is the alpha in the bunker, so he has to kind of defer a little bit to him, and he's able to do that, not in a broad way at all, but in a way that really makes sense for the movies.
We also wanted him to bring some of the comic relief to the movie, and he's done an incredible job of that, sort of ad-libbing some things and just bringing his energy to the scenes, and just the look on his face in certain scenes kills me. He's so funny, and his reaction to things, and it's bringing a lot of life to our movie that, just wasn't on the page, to have him be the guy saying those words and sitting in those scenes.
John Gallagher Jr., who is someone I loved in Short Term 12 and Newsroom, he makes it look so easy. But it takes, I think, an incredibly sharp actor to play a character like that and make him as authentic and likable as John does.
I really just related to the idea of somebody trying their darndest to keep up appearances and kind of keep a little bit of brightness and happiness in the face of kind of uncertainty and tragedy and the unknown of what really is going on. And I think he also feels a sense of wanting to make things easier for Mary's character, Michelle. I think sees that this is a very kind of overwhelming and intense environment, and John's character, Howard, is a very intense and overwhelming personality. And I think Emmett, my character, his role is to kind of disarm and comfort Mary's character to a certain extent. On such a personal kind of movie, really, it's rare that you get to do a project like this where it's really just 3 actors the whole time. If you're gonna get stuck in a bunker with a couple people, then Mary Elizabeth Winstead and John Goodman, Dan Trachtenberg, our director, it's not a bad group, really.
When you have the idea of a bunker, there's a lot of preconceived things that come in. Bunkers are, by definition, pretty small spaces, particularly the way they build them nowadays. They're generally these 10-foot tubes, 50 feet long, and then they just stack tubes next to one another, so it's not very interesting. So I really kind of started from the idea of who is Howard, and when did he start this process, and what did he do as he developed it, and how long did it take him, and what was important to him. And it kind of came down to the idea that what was important to Howard was making something safe for his family. That's everything. Everything kind of springs from that idea. And I thought it gave an interesting opportunity to create a world that was going to be as much of a character as any of the characters written on the page. And this was a chance to really create something that had something to talk about.
Some of the designs, I should say, do come from really idiosyncratic people's structures that they've built. There's an image that we found early on of an old man in his bunker sitting, on a rocking chair with carpeted floors and the curved wall. We definitely took inspiration from those interesting folk.
In general, it's basically all built out of wood. I mean, it's really just it's a wood set, and then to get the various textures, we've got great scenics, and so they take the plaster and they paint it to look like cement. So all of that's all those steps of that process. It's always great to see the stuff on paper become fully realized and dimensionalized. And it's funny because Jeff and I, the DP, have been talking, and I keep complimenting him on the lighting, because it's my sense that you can do whatever you want to do and put the most expensive, gorgeous set in the world in front of the camera, and then if it's not lit particularly well, it can look awful. and he has lit this beautifully.
We wanted different rooms to have different looks so that as an audience member you wouldn't get bored, the whole thing would look the same. And we wanted to build all the lighting in so that the actors would really be able to move freely through the space, and then it would also be as authentic as possible. We did talk about the characters and the different color palettes of the characters, where Michelle's room we wanted it to be warm, Howard's room is quite cold. And then we talked a lot about the main living space, and because there was so much action in that room, we really wanted to create two different looks there, the way that your body would kind of want to have sort of daylight, so we create this sort of fluorescent vibe during the day, and then at night he switches that off, and there's lots of warm practicals.
It's cool to come to a set every day and to have to cook up new ways of covering areas that we've looked at quite a bit. When you are confined to a box, it's more exciting because that confinement breeds creativity. We are shooting, for the most part, in order, in continuity, in sequence. So we're really going from the beginning of the movie through the end of the movie, and it's so special to be on this set and to just go from one room to the next in story order and have the momentum of what we did previously and what we've just shot, and bring that into the next sequence.
It's a cool place. It'd be a great fishing camp. Down here, we're shooting in New Orleans, Louisiana. There's a lot of fishing camps down here. And it'd be a cool place to hang out, but not to live here for 30 years or so.
It was amazing how many times in doing press for other projects, I would be asked about Cloverfield. You know, when's the sequel coming? Are you doing a sequel? What about Cloverfield 2? To do something like that again, it has to be a great reason for it. If a Cloverfield sequel wasn't a literal Cloverfield sequel, but rather an original story, and what if the thing that many people are bemoaning, which is, well, how come there aren't enough original stories now being made? We thought, well, this is actually a great opportunity to allow it to exist. There was a kind of DNA that felt like Cloverfield, though it wasn't the same characters, it wasn't the same monster, it wasn't a found footage movie. It's a way of doing a series of movies that all share a certain kind of connection, and yet not feel like we are simply redoing, revamping, retooling, rebooting, but rather doing something original and hopefully frightening and entertaining.
I hope it's something unlike they've ever seen before. It's because that's why I did it in the first. What attracted me to it in the first place, it was different from anything I'd seen. And I got to grow a crappy beard. It's making me sneeze.
Also, have gotten from Dan and from the cast we're loving is a real sense of humor and some comedy, sometimes darker comedy, but some laughs in there and some warmer moments.
We love the sort of origin of this girl and the story of this woman sort of coming into her own through this crazy experience, and I hope that's the thing that people take away from it.
It sounds like a cliche thing to kind of say, but I really do believe it. It really is a ride. It really is like taking such a great ride, and that was the way that I felt reading it. And when you get that kind of adrenaline burst, and when you get that feeling like your heart's racing just from reading a script, you know that once you get it off the page, it's going to be even more exciting.
To get out in the world and see that Bad Robot ending, that third act switch, is just going to be fun.
This is a very unique movie in terms of its structure. Not a lot of movies have a finish the way we finish, and to spend all this time in this pressure cooker and then pull that release valve and explode the way that we do is a unique experience to movies and, in fact, most mediums.
So I hope when people see it, they kind of go back and go, okay, I need to watch that again.